Yo, what is up, guys? Colt412 the Fox here. Well, anyways, I gotta say though, this is a special summer movie review that I don't think anybody thought they ever see coming. And this movie review is special to me because I think this has been one of the best movies I ever seen, and I have been waiting to review this movie for a while now. And if anyone don't know, I'm talking about Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken. And man, this movie reminded me so much of one of my favorite cartoon series, also known as My Life's a Teenage Robot, and yet, this was incredible. I've never seen anything like it. But for some people out there, they claim that their movie reviews on it said that the film was boring and it was too ridiculous. Well, in my mind, it's not boring or ridiculous. Only thing I could say is, this film, I think, deserves a much better review here on 412 Films Productions. Because this movie review is going to be the best one yet. So grab yourself some popcorn, and grab some snacks, or maybe grab some soda, because this is going to be one bumpy ride for the movie review on Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken. The movie begins with an open dialogue on the whole ordeal, showing a view of jellyfishes and underwater sea creatures, while a sunken ship as we see an eye of a kraken. Well, it tells the stories that some people think that krakens are actually bloodthirsty monsters who want to destroy sailors and most of all, destroy their ships. But in reality, they're actual noble protectors. Then that's when we cut and be introduced to the star of the film herself, Ruby Gillman. Now, when I was seeing this film for the first time, I didn't know what to expect. I thought this was just going to be like a regular basic film, but no, I was amazed what I was seeing here. But anyways, we see Ruby Gillman getting ready for school on the phone with her high school friend. And then we see a drawn-on title card. More precisely, a drawn-on title card where it told the story on when Ruby Gillman was getting ready for prom. But the thing was, her mother was overprotective and did not like the idea of her daughter going to prom, because the problem was they were trying to be normal, ordinary people. But after seeing an amazing presentation of a video that Ruby Gillman was trying to present to her mother about the idea, but her mother still thought the presentation was good, but the problem is she still said no. And that led to bad to worse, because Ruby Gillman was so determined to go to prom, but however, she pointed out that if the people asks, they're from Canada, and more importantly, that's where she told her not to touch water. And from the beginning, when I found out about that, I was like, well, that was supposed to be like, well, that's kind of shocking, but whatever the reason, it must mean something where she's not supposed to be touching water, but I didn't know what to expect when she mentioned that. But anyways, back to the review. As I already noticed, as Ruby Gillman was walking through the town, a sailor dropped by, thought she was a kraken, but that's when she pointed out on her book bag that she was from Canada. But it was nothing. That led to where, in the high school, that led to the school prom. And yeah, shockingly enough, I didn't know what to expect, but all the asking to prom looked kind of chaotic. There was confetti, there was signs asking to go to prom, and I was like, well, didn't expect that. But anyways, in my mindset, going to prom is not an easy thing, because I remember my prom when I was in high school. Back in the old days, living in a small town, I went to prom. But out of the ordinary, it was the only time I ever had. But it was a great time I never forgot about. Anyways, moving on. And throughout that time in the film, that's when we're introduced to Ruby Gillman's love interest, Connor. And yet, that led to where one of her friends were trying to help her out with the understanding of the whole ordeal. And she wanted to try to ask him the normal way. That was when one of her friends gave her the confetti, but in my mind I'm like, girl, you don't need the confetti. Just be yourself. But at least you're always happy to know that he'll love you for who you are, kiddo. But in my mind, that's how I felt, out of respect to Ruby Gillman. But anyways, throughout the film, that's where she met up with Connor by the pier. And seeing that, I was like, well, I didn't know what to expect. Throughout the film, as she was about to ask Connor out to the prom, but that's when Connor accidentally discovered something, and Ruby Gillman tried to play it out like it was just something, but then when she accidentally tried to take it away from, to push the button, and it said it's party time, and that led to bad to worse, where Connor went backwards on his skateboard and landed right in the water. She tried throwing a life preserver to save him, but that led to where she was getting frustrated and she realized that she couldn't touch water. Then she was too scared, but all of a sudden she fell right into the water, jumped in to try to save Connor. But she saw him, but that led to where she tried to save him, but got stuck in the vines of the seaweed in the water. But that was where all of a sudden we saw a amazing glow, which had to be her power. And that led to where there was something in the shadows saving Connor underwater. And then after Connor was saved, we see something that I couldn't explain, or whoever it was. That's when, after Ruby got out of the water, she was worried about Connor, but as she was trying to regroup with Connor, that was when one of her friends showed up and realized, like, what's going on? That was where I was confused at first, like, what the heck was I seeing here? But amazement enough, she saw Connor safe, and as she tried to regroup with him by what looked like to be a fountain of fishes, like a statue of fishes, more likely, I was like, whoa, this school, what was I seeing here? But that was until we got introduced to what looked like to be the new girl, they said. And I don't want to get into it, but anyways. This new girl saved Connor's life, as they claimed to be, but in my mind, like, bull crap. Someone else did. You're just the one taking the glory. But that was where it led to where she introduced herself. But the new girl was kind of like, I was like, what am I seeing here? Is this new girl trying to take the glory, or was she trying to steal Ruby Gillman's thunder? But either way, I was stunned. But by the time the new girl kept showing off, Ruby Gillman saw a glow on her hands, like something was wrong, as she was about to leave. That led to where the new girl kept asking her questions and introduced herself. And that was where she was like trying to speak to her, but Ruby saw the glow in her hands and she was starting to feel woozy, like, as I noticed, like she was seeing like everything spinning in her mind, like, what's happening? Like, that's when the new girl asked her if she was okay, but I was immediately stunned, and I felt bad for poor Ruby after she ran off. But anyways, after she ran off, she was heading somewhere, but while we then cut to her mother presenting a new house, and I might have forgot to mention that her mother is a real estate agent, while her dad, on the other hand, also does videos on the internet while her brother plays dodgeball. But deep down in my mind, it was so shocking that they're just trying to be an ordinary family and trying to blend in. But anyways, that's when we cut to Ruby trying to run into what looked like to be the school library, trying to hide. And her hand kept glowing out of fear and desperation. She was scared because her hand was glowing, but then she tried to call someone, which was her mother, but instead it accidentally called Connor. And as she kept demanding her phone to call her mother, but then that was where she was growing into a giant Kraken. And that was like, oh my god, what is this? My life's a teenage robot? But boy, did I get my wish. I loved every minute of what I was seeing because it was like a superhero trying to hide her identity, but it was a little different from My Life's a Teenage Robot. But this was, I think, the best film I witnessed of what I was seeing. But anyways, that's when we see a librarian trying to see what was going on. She tried to put the books back, but that was until she was wondering what the glow was coming from. Ruby tried to shush her, but they screamed immediately. And Ruby was growing, and that was where the whole library was already exploding. And that led to where she became a giant Kraken, at which she is. But that was where I was immediately stunned, like, in this scene, like, wow. Someone tried to hide her true form. And something I thought I'd never see, but amazing. But that was where she felt scared and worried because of her actual true form. That led to bad to worse. She tried to hide from the new girl, but then tried to walk away into the woods. But that was where we cut back to her mother on the property for the new tenants, as she explained everything about the home. That led to where she saw her daughter in the woods trying to hide her ability. But that was where she played off and just be like, you enjoy your new home. You have a lovely day. But that was where I was like, well, that's a first in a movie. But anyways, she got in her car, she threw the keys, and the new tenants were like, well, at least we got the house. But that was where she tried calling her daughter, trying to find her, but her mother was like, where she hit the brakes until she saw something she hit. I was like, what is this? A reference to Bobby Boy? Well, it was an old school film, but it was pretty cool. But anyways, that was where we're introduced to Ruby's mother's brother, or her brother. Well, I was like, well, I had no idea Ruby Gillman's mother actually had a brother. I was like, well, that's a first. But deep down in my mind, I was immediately stunned seeing this guy. And, well, he was kind of funny, but put a smile on my face. I think one of the coolest characters I've ever seen. Anyways, that's where she had her brother in the car trying to shush him, just so there was no problems, and that led to where Ruby was trying to hide in the woods not to be seen, but that was where she saw her mother's car and tried to run for it, but she was worried that her mother would be upset due to these found powers that she had and her true form, to say the least. But by the time her mother and her brother kept arguing about the whole ordeal about the whole ordeal about their mother, which happens to be Ruby Gillman's grandmother, which I'll get into in just a moment. But anyways, that was when her mother noticed that Ruby was running up to the lighthouse not to be seen, but she noticed immediately and got there. She was scared and worried, but her brother tried to talk. She slammed the door and was just like, shh, but didn't want to hear it, I guess. It led to the most emotional moment I never thought I'd see in the film, where she said she was a monster. But her mother helped her through to control her power. And out of the ordinary, I thought I never seen anything like it, but that was when she asked her to give her her hand. By the time she did, that was where I was stunned. Like, her mother was not mad at her, but she was worried that her mother would be mad at her throughout the scene, but that was when she calmed her down, it looked like, and they were trying to have their reasonable talk. Then I noticed heart-wrenching scene where Ruby was crying, claiming herself to be a monster. But deep down in my mind, Ruby Gillman is not a monster, but just a young lady who doesn't know how to control her power. But I know that she'll eventually learn to, but which we'll get to in just a moment. But anyways, that was where throughout the film she talked about Clarence, one of her old pets she used to have, but her mother eventually talked her down to try to calm down the situation, and Ruby Gillman grew down back to her normal size again. She was normal again. But I think it was a great moment. And that was where Ruby Gillman was introduced to her uncle. And immediately, she demanded what was happening, but that was where they got out of there and headed home. And that was where things got a little chaotic, where they were arguing about the whole ordeal. And Ruby wanted to try to learn how to control her powers, but that was when her brother was introduced to the uncle. And throughout the entire scene, Ruby was glowing and her power was showing, and everyone was talking at once, trying to calm down the situation, but Ruby got so mad, all the lights went out. And she went upstairs and screamed in her beanbag. And that was when she overheard her mother and father talking. And that was when they were worrying about help and all that. But Ruby, on the other hand, was, I think, a curious girl, would love to learn anything. But that was when her mother showed her uncle out the door. But that was where Ruby realized that she couldn't believe her mother is still hiding things from her. But she wanted answers, it looked like, and she was determined to get them. So, I believe she did something that I think no girl should ever done before. That was sneak out. So, she snuck out, trying to find her uncle, that was where I believe the more she looked around town, but I know I'm supposed to be partial here, but the whole town looked stunning. Like, it was nearby a lake, and it was beautiful. Something I thought I'd never see. But either way, anyways, that's where, by the more she kept looking for her uncle, she eventually found him being attacked by seagulls. And that was where she threw the corn dog, and the seagulls went after that. But that was where her uncle was saved by his own niece, and Ruby wanted answers that not even her mother could give her. But that was where her uncle didn't want to do that to her sister. But knowing Ruby just wanted answers and something more precisely, she didn't know at first. But that was where it led to, they had the idea to just jump into the water and to go see what looked like to be Ruby's grandmother. But she had to think about it real quick, it looked like. That was where she realized it was not fair to be left in the dark. But deep down in my mind, that was when she saw the lights of the docks glowing. And that was where she was determined to get her answers. And that was where she was going to jump in, but her uncle prevented that from happening. And that's when I said was, "What are you doing, man?" But that was when she hugged him. To point out, it was 15 years, so that's when he said, "Oh, stick snack," but it was a corn dog. So eventually Ruby looked at the waters and took a deep breath, and then she jumped in. I was like, well, that's the second time she's been in the water. But that was until we see, I believe, the most magnificent scene I thought I never see, when she turned into her giant Kraken form and she was glowing. I was like, my, that's beautiful. I'd never seen anything like that in the scene or in a movie to this day. And that was where she followed her uncle, but got caught in seaweed, and eventually she was having trouble, but that was where she was swimming. And that was where, by the time they were heading all the way to the other side of the ocean to meet her grandmother, and then by the time she met her, I saw a magnificent city that I thought I'd never see. But throughout the scene, that was where she was reunited with, before we got to the scene of the city, that was where she was reunited with Clarence, her giant whale. But it just warms my heart to see some amazing scenes in the film. But ironically, I never thought I'd see everything as amazing as I thought. But it was one of the greatest scenes of all time. But anyways, moving on. As she got to the city to meet her grandmother, that was where eventually Ruby Gillman wanted answers about everything, but by the time she returned to the city, that was where her grandmother presented her with the throne and to be passed down to generations. But however, it was revealed that Ruby Gillman was bound by royal blood, along with her mother and her brother and the others. But that led to where she said her mother's name in front of her, but that was when her grandmother had a high-pitched temper, and I was like, oh shoot, remind me not to make the queen angry. But at first, she offered her a tray of cookies and everything else, but that led to where, as I mentioned earlier, Ruby Gillman's grandmother gave her the opportunity to explain everything. But however, that was when Ruby was talking about the prom. That was where it led to be revealed that Ruby Gillman was actually blood by royalty, as I mentioned earlier. She had a huge following on where her grandmother lived. And that led to where everyone showed up and was presented as the next queen of the city. But however, that led to where Ruby refused, and it was revealed after 15 years she wasn't ready for that kind of responsibility. But that was when we cut to where her grandmother talked about the history of Krakens, including the mermaids. And I was like, well, I don't get it. Are mermaids supposed to be the good guys or the villains? But it was revealed to me throughout the whole ordeal. But Ruby was understood about it as well, because she thought that people love mermaids, she said. But that was where her grandmother pointed out the history of the whole ordeal with the mermaids and the Krakens. But that was where there was one in particular of the mermaids, the only weapon powerful enough to defeat a giant Kraken. That was when they formed, and for that, they had to fight with everything they can, and they paid the price for it throughout that fight. But Ruby was learning more about the fight that they had, which was an ancient war, and that her mother, who was the greatest warrior of the Krakens, she got into a great battle, and that led to where wrestled away the Triton. But that was where it led to the Triton being taken away from the mermaid, and the mermaids were defeated forever. I was like stunned out of my mind. Like, this was a huge war between the Krakens and the mermaids, but it was like ancient history of what I was witnessing. But that led to her grandmother angry, and she had laser eyes, and I was like, whoa! I guess Ruby Gillman, on the other hand, must have had some powers and everything else, but it looks like her family had hidden powers I didn't know about. It was unbelievable. But anyways, that was where they had their talk, and the grandmother told her was, "You're not a human. You're a Kraken." And that led to where she pointed out she'd be the next queen. It was her birthright. But throughout the whole ordeal, she pointed out to her that she could never outswim her destiny. But Ruby Gillman, on the other hand, pointed out other stuff, knowing she's just a teenager. But her grandmother understood and respected her wishes. But she was happy to see her grandmother, and that was that. But that was where eventually she was swimming home. But before she did, that was when her uncle showed up and asked, "Is that it?" That was it, pointing out about Agatha. I was like, well, that was a first for me, but anyways, by the time she was swimming home, that was when she said bye to Clarence again. Well, like, she said hi to him, and then as she left, she said bye to him. That led to where she got stuck on what led to be a Kraken trap filled with strings, as the dangerous fisherman had her in his sights. But as it came down to it, that led to where he was hunting down Ruby Gillman. And I was like stunned seeing the references of the Wicked Witch from The Wizard of Oz, and I was like, well, I had no idea. But by the time she was trying to use her laser eyes, but she didn't know how to use them. But all of a sudden, that was where, as by the time the fisherman had her, she was saved by what looked like to be a mermaid that we would believe to be the new girl. And her name is Chelsea. Well, Chelsea at first reminded me too much of another character, which I don't want to disrespect because it just blows my mind. But due to the fact they got out of there and got the safety away from the fisherman who was hunting for a Kraken, but had no idea that this was just an ordinary teenage little girl trying to live her own life. But that was where, as they got out of there and to safety, she kept demanding answers. And that was when she found out and was revealed, like, she didn't know if she was a mermaid, and she just wanted friends. But Ruby, on the other hand, did not like the idea that her biggest issue was the prom. But Chelsea did not take it lightly, and she just wanted to go home and get some sleep, but they just eventually both went home that night. When it cuts to where Ruby got home and was returning to her normal self and went to bed. But deep down in my mind, throughout that entire scene, it felt like a true origin story, and I thought I'd never see anything like it. It was phenomenal. But anyways, that's when we cut to the next day, and Ruby Gillman decided, because she smelled like sea salt and everything else, so she put on her headphones, her raincoat, and got her backpack. But then her mother was looking at her family photos and was very worried about her daughter. And I was like, well, didn't expect that. But Ruby tried to sneak out to school without her mother knowing, and that led to where her dad was trying to calm down her mom. Eventually, Ruby got caught trying to sneak out and wearing sunglasses. And I gotta admit, those shades looked really cool. Like a rock star, all I could say. Or in this case, a superstar. But anyways, that led to where Ruby Gillman's mother took off the glasses and her headphones and realized that she was asking, have you been in the water? And she said, no. But that was when she knew it was her time to go to school. But as she left, that led to where we then cut where she got her headphones on trying to listen to music and saw the destruction of the library and everyone trying to find out what's going on. But throughout the whole ordeal, to me, it was like very shocking to me. So Ruby tried to hide herself, but that was until she ran into her friends. And I think some of the coolest friends I've ever seen. They were really cool looking at the time, while the other was a social media influencer. And I think that was where... Anyways, I was just trying to say that, and I think that it was pretty cool. But I think some of the shocking moments throughout the film, I'm still stunned and can't get out of my mind. But anyways, that's where we cut to her friends trying to show off a video of the sailor trying to find a Kraken. But that was where it led to the whole ordeal. That one of her friends shared the video on social media, and Ruby felt so embarrassed, she ran right to the bathroom, crying and sad about the whole ordeal, knowing she felt completely embarrassed. I'm like, dude, be careful what you do. You may have social media, but you send it to the entire school, man. Please be careful next time, man, dang. But eventually, Ruby was in the bathroom crying and worried about what happened. That was when we ran into Chelsea. Chelsea came in with her friends, and that was where they talked about everything and out of the ordinary. And that was revealed that Chelsea wanted the war between the mermaids and the Krakens to end. And that was where she wanted the scepter. Or more likely, the trident. Sorry about that. Anyways, that led to where the trident was the way to end the war. But out of the ordinary in between, throughout the history, that was where Ruby went to train with her grandmother to learn how to use her powers. And throughout the montage, I was amazed at what I was seeing. But throughout that montage, as the cell phones popped out with the video, it was the first time she was using her laser beams. More likely her eye lasers shooting at the phones. But as it came down to it, that led to where, out of the ordinary, she wanted to try to go to the last source of the trident, which happened to be her mother. But her mother, on the other hand, knew about the mermaid, Chelsea, that they're hanging out together. But that led to where she got so mad that her and Chelsea went underwater to get the scepter. But then her mother got so mad, she went to go see her mother and demanded answers. And that led to bad to worse because it got into an all-out altercation argument, as it was boiling down to the situation as Ruby tried to get the scepter. That led to where she said that the last mermaid that survived had a daughter named Chelsea. And that led to where yeah, and a plot twist, that mermaid never had a daughter. I was like, what? So the new girl Chelsea was the evil mermaid the whole time? What a plot twist! It was so shocking to me that by the time she got the scepter back, she was ready to take over the entire planet, including ruining the prom. And that led to bad to worse when her grandmother found out along with her mother. But Ruby was so sad about the situation. And that felt like a family moment. So they got a chance to rebond again. And her grandmother and her mother got her out of there to safety. And deep down in my mind, I felt it was a family bonding to help her understand that eventually we make mistakes, but we always fix them in the end. So they got her out of the rubble and the rocks. And anyways, that's where we were cut to the final battle. And the prom is on a cruise ship, and deep down in my mind, I was like, oh dang, that was beautiful. The cruise ship on a prom ship? Most precisely, a cruise ship having the prom there in high school? Well, that's a first for me. That, I believe, was a very, very first time that all three Krakens teamed up, from mother to daughter and grandmother and granddaughter, to say the least, however you put it. But anyways, that led to where they wanted to get the trident back from her. But throughout the fight, that led to where all three of them used their laser beams, and the trident was destroyed. And the war was over. But that led to where the evil mermaid was defeated. And the fisherman, I would say, well, that was actually very cool. He actually caught himself a mermaid. And Eevee wanted that. And he got big on social media. But that led to where, at the end of the film, Ruby got a chance to be at prom with Connor and her friends. And they were all having a great time. And then finally, that was where I think, by God, the best scene of all time. Everyone was having a great time. They were actually normal human beings and got a chance to live their lives any way they could. But throughout the time, Ruby Gillman kissed Connor on his cheek, and she went off to fulfill her duties as she answered the call. And that's about wraps it up for this edition of a movie review on the channel. And I believe the first time I've ever got a chance to review Ruby Gillman Teenage Kraken. Because, in my honest opinion, people need to understand something. You don't judge a book by its cover. That's an old saying I've learned a long time ago. And throughout time, I never judged it by its cover because Ruby Gillman Teenage Kraken is still, I believe, the greatest film of all time, and it should definitely deserve a sequel. I give this film a solid 10 out of 10. Because it's got references of My Life's a Teenage Robot, and still, I think, one of the greatest films of all time. But anyways, that about wraps it up for this review. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, turn on post notifications, so you guys do not miss amazing more content here on 412 Films Productions. And if you guys want to see another movie review, please let me know down in the commentary below. That would really mean a lot right now. Until next time, you guys, thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to tell my friends I said, what's up?